Yeah, hey everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Tane, your host as always, and I'm really excited to kick off our meetup for June. So I'm joining in from the NA10 office today, and there's something I'd love to know, and that is I would love to know a tool that you discovered recently that brought you a lot of joy. So we'd love to know that. Feel free to enter that in the chat. Always great to see what people have been discovering and enjoying. Cool, some really interesting ones there in the chat. Right. And yeah, if you haven't had the chance to take a look at the agenda yet, we'll be joined by 5 speakers today. So first of all, we have a product update session by our head of design, Max, and he'll also be demoing the new features that we have in the latest versions of NA10. After that, we'll be joined by Jason, also known as Teflon, who will teach us about creating and processing web forms with NA10. We will then learn about the superpowers of the Webhook node with Ben. And as you all know, the Webhook node is one of the most powerful nodes in NA10, and he'll talk about how you can create dynamic paths and create an API using that. And after that, we'll have a 10-minute Q&A session. So feel free to ask your questions during the talk as well via the chat so that we have the questions ready for our speakers. And finally, we have two very exciting lightning talks. The first one is on automating Notion workflows for productivity. In this talk, Harshil will talk about how he uses Notion to stay productive and demonstrate the automation workflows he uses. And the second talk is by Ronald on reliable two-way alerting with NA10 and Signal 4, in which he'll talk about his NA10 journey and demonstrate an alerting use case, which he built with NA10 and Signal 4. And as always, at the end, we'll have office hours. So in case you have any questions about NA10, your workflows, feel free to stick around and we'll answer them. So without any further ado, let's get started by welcoming Max.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? Max here. So this update, we're going to show the workflow tagging feature that just came out, and then we'll have a little chat about what's coming up next. So let me share my screen. We can show off this cool new feature. So workflow tagging was released with version 0.122, and the goal behind it is to basically help you organize your workflows. You know, once you get past 10 workflows or something, you probably want a bit of an organizational system. And so in doing this, we were definitely keeping power users in mind and have something that's sort of streamlined and quick to use, but then also just intuitive. So when we were getting into the research of this, the big decision was between tagging or folders. And we went with tagging because it allows many-to-many mappings. So for people who really have a lot of workflows, provides a lot more flexibility. And by having tagging, we don't exclude in future to have folders. So that was sort of the decision behind that. And so let's check it out. So on this instance I have here, we don't have any tags created yet. And as you can see, we have a bit of a change to the header menu here. As part of workflow tagging, we can now inline change a workflow name, like so, and it automatically saves. And then we can add tags. So there's a few ways to add tags. One way is inline. We'll show that in a moment. You can also go to the Manage Tags modal, where you can create your first tag. So let's say we create a production tag. And we can create that, and that can be used, and of course you can modify and whatnot. So let's say we've created this workflow. We want to, now maybe it's version 3, and we want to add it to production. We can click here and then click to add that and remove it. You can also, let's say this is ready for staging, inline create tags like so, and then add multiple tags like this. And then when you click away, it saves. So that's the basics behind creating the tags. And if I flip over, this is an instance where we have built out a bunch of tags to kind of have a bit of a mock scenario here. So this tag here, it's in production. And let's say there's an issue with it. So we're going to deactivate this workflow. And we're going to actually just change that to staging now. And then so from here, what we might want to do is get a list of all the workflows that are in DevOps and in staging. So we can open our workflows here. And if I go over to the filter by tags here, the same exact component here. So we can start typing in, let's say, staging, to find all of our staging workflows, and then perhaps we want to get workflows that are in staging and in marketing. We can drill down like that quickly. And then again, from anywhere there's components accessible, you can go in and start modifying that tag if you need to, and then you can sort of get an idea of how many workflows are using a tag in case you want to update it. So how we like to build features in Edit, we like to create a minimum viable product and get it out the door so we can get your feedback. So in the community forums, if you have ideas, please do let us know. We're going to be actively creating an internal roadmap for tagging. So this is just sort of the first version of it, because we have a lot of users now who have a lot of workflows, and previously the unordered list was maybe not so helpful. So yeah, that's tagging in a nutshell. It's available with 0.122. On cloud, you can just click to update, self-hosted, just get to that version, and then you can start benefiting from this feature. And so that's, in a nutshell, what we've done here. It's a rather simple feature, but I think it really helps start to organize things here. For example, we're seeing, let's see everything that's for client A, there's one workflow right now, or everything that's perhaps in production. You can click that to add that. We see we have 3 workflows in production there. You can go click and open that workflow up. So that's out the door now. What we're readying at the moment is the nodes panel. So, so far, the nodes panel has, we're adding nodes every week, and it's a big unorganized list at the moment. So what we're bringing in is categories for the nodes. And for core nodes, we're adding in subcategories to also help our new users sort of understand and navigate those. Because from our research, we identified that there's a lot of core nodes that sometimes even power users don't know about. And so to make those easier to find. What we're also doing in the nodes panel is we're going to have a no results view. So if you can't find something, and that'll have a link to be able to quickly request a new node. And we're hoping that lowering of friction is going to allow all of you to basically submit all the different sort of nodes that you'd like to see so we can build those more efficiently. Another really exciting aspect of the new nodes panel is we're going to have search term aliases for nodes. So right now, if you were to type for the function node, if you're searching for JavaScript, it won't show up. We now have in place the ability to add these tags to various nodes that we're seeing from perhaps analytics on Internet.io or from the community forums, and start annotating those to help users find those. So it's being readied right now. It should be out in the next release or 2. I can give you a very quick sneak peek of that here, of how it's looking, but we're still shoring up a few things on this here and doing some testing. But for example, if that node wasn't found, sort of seeing what this no results view might look like. And one of the biggest things here is we'll be switching to all nodes by default so that you can find the trigger and the regular node like that off the bat. So this should be coming out really soon. Thanks.
It's awesome. Thanks a lot, Max.
No problem.
And while I do a quick change of guard here for enabling our next speaker to speak.
Oh, and sorry, I forgot there's one more point I can share is that after the nodes panel, we've already sort of broken ground on this, working in parallel, but a lot of our engineering effort and product effort is going to be on getting user management out the door. So again, we're already actively working on it, but the nodes panel was the sort of the feature before that. And once that's out the door, we'll have a lot more energy to focus on user management and get that out to all of you. Thanks, Dan.
Cool. Thanks, Max. And if you have any questions about Max, and well said, Khalid, Max is the best, let us know. So during the Q&A session, we can ask him those questions. And next up is Jason. Jason, you should be able to mute yourself and share your screen now.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, let me just get my screen shared here and see what we got. All right. So if you've been kind of seeing some of the stuff that I've been doing over the last little while, I've been doing a lot of work with Webforms, and I thought I'd share a little bit about some of the things I've been playing around with recently and give you a bit of a sneak peek into how I'm starting to change how we deal with Webforms. So initially this started out as a bit of a challenge for myself. I wanted to see if I could get N8N to do some stuff that we hadn't really planned on, but because we've got this awesome webhook node, we can do some very, very cool things with it. And so essentially what we've done is we've taken the webhook node and turned it into a web server. And by doing that, I can go in and create a bunch of different forms and get them to start to interact with each other. So what I've got up on the screen here right now is kind of a different way that I'm starting to play around with web forms. And, you know, there's typically, way I've done it in the past is all I've had is a form, a webhook attached to a set node, and that was it. I've started to break things out a little bit here and do a couple of different things. So the first thing is I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a pro tip. I've created this set form that will allow me to quickly and easily jump between the production or the test environment that I'm working in. So by simply enabling or disabling this test set form, it'll jump to, right now it's set to deal with the test side. If I disable it, it'll automatically jump and use the production side. So no having to jump between different screens, no having to jump between different URLs. It just does it from that quick click, which makes it really nice to work with. The other thing I've done is I've taken and I've broken out my form. One of the challenges that I've had working with some of my clients is building out this whole form in one set node. And it gets to be a bit cumbersome, and people have some challenges around, you know, how do they go about and, you know, find what piece to work on. You know, we've got the designers who are like, hey, I want to play around with the CSS, but I don't know what all this other stuff is. I don't want to break it, you know. And then we've got the developers who want to work on the scripts. So I've started creating this template where I break out the form into these multiple nodes. And so if you want to mess around with the CSS, great, here it is. And you can tweak that. And that's all they have to play around with. Same thing with the web form itself. You want to go in here, and you'll notice that this is a little bit more jumbled, but I've got this piece in here. So it's pulling information in that allows it to jump. And so this is where the test comes in. So it'll look for the target and point it either to production or test automatically without having to go in and modify it. We've run into some problems in the past where, in fact, I just had this happen last week, where I went and did a bunch of stuff, put it into production, and it failed when they showed it to the client, only because I forgot to set it to production for the web form. So this just handles it all for you. It makes it way easier. And then again, same thing with scripts. If you want to do some JavaScripts, build them into the form, you plunk them in there. And then the key that puts it all together is the HTML form, which doesn't look like a whole heck of a lot when I just look at it here, but this, all it does is builds it together. So anybody that's worked with HTML frameworks or that kind of stuff will notice this is a very similar pattern where you have these little chunks and pieces, you put it together, and then in the end, you have this one piece that throws it all into one that makes it all work. So one of the things I'm working on, and this is kind of the predecessor to that, is I'm building a N8N forms toolkit, which will basically allow you to, it'll have a whole bunch of these set nodes built out for you, and you can drag and drop them into different spots to build your form dynamically, and then it'll just spit out whatever form you want, ready to go. So what I've been doing in the past is I've been using this tool, formbuilder.online. You can download the tool, actually, you keep your own copy. And I use this to, you know, modify my forms, make different things. And then if you hit save and copy HTML, it'll just copy the HTML straight into your clipboard where you can paste it into N8N. So I'm working on building kind of this out, but instead of using this tool, you'll actually just be able to come into here, drag and drop these different pieces, and away you go. And just to kind of show a little bit here, One thing to note when you're doing these, because you have two webhooks, when you are doing stuff in your test environment, you have to re-execute every single time that you are accessing the form. So if you, for example, if we hit execute here now, and I'm just going to refresh my demo, then great, it spits out the form, no problem. But you'll notice here that this is all executed and this is stopped. So if I go now and I submit my form, because it's set to demo, of course I've got these set, I've got to fill them all out. If I hit submit now, it'll fail because we end up having a, it's not registered. But if I go back and I execute this now and I hit submit, then it works fine. So the interesting thing is that I go back here and I disable this and I reset my form. So my form is now working again. I'll have to do a reset. Oops. Trying to do this the right way. There we go. And I submit my information because I've changed it to point to my service. Okay, so that you notice it didn't go into here. It didn't have to hit execute twice because it actually hit the active one, just simply because it turned this on and off. So I think I'm going to stop it there. I could, I've got 10 minutes. I could go on for 10 hours, but I think that we'll leave it there. I'm sure we've got some questions and stuff we can kind of talk about as well.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Jason. And folks, if you have any questions for Jason, feel free to write to us in the chat and we will cover that in the Q&A session. So next up is Ben. Let me make you the co-host, Ben.
Hello, perfect. So let me share my screen. There we go. Amazing. So let me start my presentation. I even built a presentation. So we're getting now a bit more technical. I mean, I'm one of the engineers at NNN, so that's my passion. Yeah, I'm not an infrastructure expert or anything. We're just like doing, yeah, we just want to improve the product and build it the way on the requirements that we have. So there's definitely things that you can always do better or so on. So just as a disclaimer, so because I'm gonna tell you now how we solve one of the problems that we're having. And the problem that we had is that people were just able to use static routes more or less. I mean, you had the option to use params, or on the post, you were able to post something on the body, but you were not able to post like data within the route. And we had a lot of requests from the community that exactly needed this feature because they wanted to integrate with another service who was, for example, sending the ID in the route, and there was no option with how you can handle this, right? And this came with a lot of requirements because like we're not building on a green field anymore. It's like, yeah, we're working on, we also don't want to break any existing containers or instances. So first of all, we want to support wildcards at any position in route because we don't know what users need, right? We don't know what they want to send, what like maybe others API needs to send. So it needs to be at the beginning. It can be in the beginning, it can be the only thing, but there also can be static parts within it. And yeah, there's still like static parts needs to work. For example, as we're having like product 1, because like some people are already using them and maybe having numbers in there, but at the same time, they want to use a wildcard at the same position more or less. That so making it flexible for the future, but maintaining their old webhook that they are already having in use, right? And then we also want to pass them in a cool way to the workflow so that people can easily access them, so that when you're defining the route, you're more or less giving the key, and then our system N8N is parsing or whatever is in there in the route and gives it back to you. And yeah, and also we want to keep the same route stem. The people of you who already built an API know this. So there's like always, for example, if you're working on a user, usually you start with user and this where you create it. And if you edit it, then you're using user/ID, like, I don't know, 50, 10, whatever, and so on. And there's like certain standards, more or less, that we still wanted to maintain and want to preserve to really give like an API like feeling. And there's also some internal stuff that's going on. So yeah, we want to keep N8N scalable. And this meant we can just use the database more or less, because as you know, maybe from the scalability talk from Omar already, where you can spin up multiple workers and they are working independently, and the only common ground that they're having is our database, right? And so this was the only possibility that we can use to save any data and make any decisions based on. And yeah, now I want to show you how we've built our new Pokemon trainer app. And I know I'm a developer, I'm still using Postgres. We could also use Airtable, but it's simple. So please, no fears here. And for example, let's start with our Pokemon trainer. So as I already said, like usually you have a stem in an API, which is in this case the trainers. And then you have like an ID, or you could even call it trainer ID or something. And then you could like get his Pokemon, for example, right? This would be one route, or the most basic route, just getting all trainers, right? This like should be able to be called. And as we can see, I want to run it now on test. That we're running get all trainers here. And when we're running it as a test, I'm gonna send it here. It's slow for whatever reason. There we go. We have Ash, Misty, and Brock. So all three trainers that we're having in a database. If we just want to get a specific trainer, now comes our first case where we want to have an ID, right? So we're hitting trainers and then we want to have an ID. Normal, simple get. We have this now, so I don't always have to run the execute. I built this like with activating the node, and then there we go. There's one thing changing, and you might have seen this already when you're using wildcards. I don't know, maybe I can zoom in. So when you're using wildcards, you see that we have like this ID in here. That's necessary for us because we need it from a technical perspective and technical standpoint. If you want to have this also for your static routes, this would mean that you would need to copy this ID and insert it beforehand. If you need to have exactly the same URL. If you're building your own app and you can define the route, you're free to do whatever you want. So yeah, as we're sending it here, we also want to get the Pokemons of the trainer, right? And here we have it, for example, nested within the query. Like the ID is in the middle of it, and then we want to get the Pokemons. And yeah, I mean, we can just test it. So we see it running. And run it here. We want to get the Pokemon of a trainer. And for example, we can get the Pokemon of Ash, which is like ID 1. It's running. There we go. We have Pikachu, level 6, Pokedex ID number 25. So pretty easy there. But like as we know, like our APIs are not just like getting data, it's like also creating and updating data. And for example, we want to create a Pokemon. For example, Nidoran. I don't know, maybe someone's favorite Pokemon. I just chose it like by accident, more or less. Here I have a beautiful list. Okay, of all the Pokemon that we can choose. So we can also like later on, if we got some time, we can get deeper into this. But here we just want to create one. And so here we're just sending like a post to the normal Pokemon. So it's again, the simple standard one. It's not breaking anything. But then, so we now created number 32 Nidoran. But now we want to capture a Pokemon, right? And we think now Ash is the right guy to capture our Nidoran with like our ID 32, because like when we are looking at capturing a Pokemon, we see that we have the trainer ID here at the second position and the Pokemon ID at the end with like a capture and the trainers in between. So like a normal API. And we just mimic it here. Like there's the 1 and the 32, and then we're catching it. And when we're getting back, hey, to the Pikachu, now we have a level 1 Nidoran. Level 1 is pretty weak, and you can't do much with a level 1 Nidoran. I mean, even your level 2 Taubsi will probably make you a lot of problems. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna level up our Nidoran. And this is pretty easy as well, because we know the trainer ID, we know the Pokemon's route, we know the Pokemon ID needs to come afterwards. And then as we designed it, we just need to add to the body, we just need to add the level. So what we're doing, we're going into our route, we can add it like our Nidoran, and because we know it's a powerful Nidoran, and yeah, we never let it evolve, so that's why we are now bringing it up to level 55, and then we're seeing, hey, we get back our Nidoran, level 55. We can check all our executions as usual in here. Oh, I need to find this. Yes, we want to switch. And here we see, for example, that our level up run, here we're just setting some data, writing it into Postgres. And to see that I'm not lying, I for sure also have my Pokemon database available. So you see all captured Pokemon. These are the trainers, like ID 1 is Ash, ID 2 is Misty. So here's like his Nidoran with like ID 32 in here and level 55. And this is where we have it. And this is now this more or less the simple path, like how you can build like a complete API. When I remember the times where I have been building apps, it was like mainly crudding users or crudding data. What you can also do, oh, that's also what I wanted to show. I mean, for example, if this is not doing the job for you, you can, as easy as that, like, let's just open it again. What we can do always is just like, for example, dropping in another function node. Oh, not want to do it here, want to do it there. For example, and if we need to run some logic or so on, like, I mean, we can always change it and work in it. And this makes it really powerful. I mean, it's like, I've built this API faster than I would probably build it in code without like all the setup and so on, because like spinning up an end-to-end instance is just like running one Docker container. So that's super, super amazing there. And yeah, I can like get also into some more technical details, how we did it. We unfortunately need to prefix the webhook ID in front of the route to have like an identifier. We can maintain the older behavior because of this, because we're just adding to the route. And now, yes, like our idea now is that we're using the webhook ID in combination with the whole length of the path that you're typing in. And this more or less our identifier, which really like allows us that we can match the route, that we can match exactly the params that you're passing in with the right keys, so that your workflow is starting correctly. As you see here, for example, this middle part is like this long middle part in the middle is just the ID, and then it is like all the easy part that we know. Cool. And just as a last comment, I put now everything into one workflow. As you know, with end-to-end, you're so flexible, you can spread it over multiple workflows. If you want to have like one workflow per action, no problem. You only thing that you should do is like copying the workflow over so it maintains the ID, just as a hint. And otherwise, yeah, the sky's the limit, I would say. Cool.
Cool. Thank you so much, Ben. And folks, now if you have any question, it's time for Q&A. Please feel free to send them in the chat. And what I've done right now is I have collected all the questions, sorted them according to the speakers. So Max, I'm gonna ask you first. Let me unmute you. Okay, Max, first question. Is there a way to suggest aliases for the workflows?
So at the moment, we don't, let's say, have an official vehicle for this. But I think in the community forums, One thing we are doing is, for example, we noticed the other day that someone's referring to the cron trigger as a poll trigger. So we'll be adding that, for example. So I think for now, posting on Discord would probably be a good place to do it, on the community forums, and we can have a think about how we might kind of streamline that, maybe a simple type form or something like that. So that's a good suggestion. We'll have a think about that.
Cool. The next question is, what do you mean by user management?
Sure. So right now, your N8N instance doesn't have the concept of users like you might in a tool like Asana or Jira. And also really the only vehicle for securing your instance is with basic auth. With user management, we're going to allow multiple users to coexist on the instance. Good example might be something like WordPress, where you have a self-hosted app, where you have multiple users that can log in. And so by default, users will be able to create their workflows basically in a silo, have their own little part of N8N where they can manage that. And then you'll be able to share those workflows with other users. So what we've done in the research phase is done a bunch of research looking really far into the roadmap for user management. So we don't sort of constrain ourselves with any of our design decisions. And now that that work's been done and design work's been done, and now sort of engineering's getting involved, we're going to be really prioritizing getting an MVP, minimum viable product of user management. So users will be able to log in, share workflows with other users, share credentials with other users. We've done a lot of thinking on credential management and how to have that so that users can use credentials but not access those keys and whatnot. So that's been some feedback from the community. So that'll be the first thing rolling out. And then in tranches, we'll be rolling out more sophisticated mechanisms to organize sort of bigger organizations and bigger teams, basically. But so in a nutshell, it allows multiple people to exist on an instance. And I think for us, I mean, the big push, be it a company, be it a nonprofit, be it a social club, you know, it can get a bit confusing to have everyone logging in through the basic auth. Tagging would obviously help with that, but now with this, you'll be able to sort of use N8N how you might expect to use a typical SaaS app, or again, something like Jira on-prem.
Cool. Then the next one is, would there be an option to favorite the node?
Node favorites. So that is on our internal roadmap for the nodes panel right now. So we did some thinking about it and we said, you know, when we do this, we want to do it right. So we will be sort of on the nodes panel roadmap, be thinking about a pinning, favoriting, that sort of thing. And I guess the concept, at least right now, is if you saw from the example of the nodes panel, we have the core nodes on top. If you start favoriting nodes, we would create a new category on top of that favorite, so you could collapse it or not, and then add those nodes. Yeah, so that's a great suggestion and something that's actively sort of on that roadmap, and we'll get to that.
Cool. And this last one, would there be roles with multi-tenancy?
Sorry?
Would there be roles with multi-tenancy?
Yeah, so for user management, we do have roles planned out. So we're going to be starting off with a handful of roles. We're going to be building everything out so it's flexible to be adjusting in the future, but we'll be rolling out with essentially an owner, admin, and member roles. And so what we'll be doing as well is that, so that's at the instance level. And then when you create an entity like a workflow credential, you own that credential and you can sort of administrate at the workflow level, very similar to Google Drive, who is shared on that. Now, of course, at the owner level and whatnot, there'll be some permissions that you sort of can view everything, irrespective of if you're shared on it, for sort of admins and organizations and whatnot. So I would say there's been a lot of thinking on that. We've been inspired by obviously some mature solutions that have done this well. So I think Google played a big part in that as well. But yes, we've definitely thought about how in an organization, there's different users can coexist and get access to things and get just really the level of access that they need. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much, Max.
No problem.
Okay, Jason, next up, we have some questions for you. So first one is, are you controlling the active state of the workflow in the set node? I think I missed that part. So where could I get, yeah. So are you controlling the active state?
Yeah, so actually, yes, we are. So actually, if you don't mind, I'll just share my screen again, just to make life easier.
You should be able to now.
Good. So the test node here is what I'm using for controlling whether this goes to, whether the form pushes its way to production or test. So the set node itself, ignore all of this, is just a variable I set to test, and it's a Boolean variable. And this little piece of code looks for if test is set to true or not. And if it's set to true, then it goes to the true, or sorry, to the test. And if it's not set to true, then it automatically goes just straight to production. And that is then referenced in the web form itself, right here. And that's how I'm controlling all of it. So when this is active, then great, it'll go to test. When I deactivate it, it'll go to prod. So it really makes building out how you're doing things and how you can quickly jump between production and test without making significant changes to your code or digging into your web form all the time.
Cool, thanks, Jason. And the next one is, could I get a template from Theme Forest and use it in my workflow? Absolutely.
Any HTML forms and so on, they all work, or the templates, they all work. I'm going to give you a couple of caveats around that. Often these templates, they require external files. So if you have, for example, if it's referencing an image file or it's referencing other HTML, you can't really put those in their present form into N8N. So if you were to, as an example, go and need to put an image file, you would actually have to encode that into proper format and embed that into the into the header, or into, sorry, not necessarily the header, but into the header or into the CSS or wherever you're referencing it. And so it's totally doable. It's just, you have to keep that in mind. And same thing for any other external as well. So if you're going to go down that path, I would suggest that you build yourself a little web server, or use whatever your favorite web server hosting company is, host that on there, and then point those forms to just this piece. So if you could eliminate this whole section by using an external server, the whole purpose of this is to get away from using that external server. So you have to put a little bit of thought into some of that, and I'm actually thinking of doing a bit of a video tutorial on how do you take these external templates and so on and build them all into N8N, or use an external. So how do you make those decisions? Because really that comes down to your design decisions. The nice thing about this, about putting it all into N8N, is you can make it dynamic. So you can actually have information coming in from different places and spitting out values based off that other information.
Cool, thanks, Jason. And then we have some questions for Ben. Let me unmute you, Ben. So the first question is, could Nginx be used to white label the prefix plus root domain for pretty or user-facing URLs?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can put a Nginx in front of it and just like forward it wherever you want to. For example, you can also like use Nginx to more or less inject into the route or into the path that you're using, inject your I don't know, ID that you want to use or so on. So definitely you can route this. You can, like with Nginx, I mean, it's so powerful, you can more or less mimic your whole route tree that you want to have, and just forward it to wherever you want to have it.
Cool. Then the next question asks, would it be possible to use LDAP auth?
I think it's regarding user management, right?
Okay, Max. Before I get to Max, one last question I have for Ben is, did you catch them all?
No, I mean, we can run it, right? It takes a moment, I guess, if we're getting like till 151.
Fair. Okay, Max, would it be possible to use LDAP auth?
Sure. So As I said, we've done a lot of research in sort of the roadmap, and then what we're prioritizing to release as an MVP. So things like LDAP, Active Directory, these sorts of various external auth strategies won't be in the scope of the sort of the MVP v1 feature, but it's absolutely something we've researched, and we're designing everything so that it is possible to be bringing in auth strategy, etc. So when will LDAP come? When will Active Directory come? These are still sort of details that we need to iron out, and exactly how those will be available. But rest assured, we're building everything with this in mind, so that when we do release it, there's not a whole lot of refactoring and whatnot. And so, in the same way, how does Auth0 potentially play into these sorts of things? That's not on the immediate scope of releasing this feature, but we're thinking about all these things actively with engineering to make sure we're not sort of boxing ourselves into a corner.
Cool. Thanks, Max. And I have a few more questions. So if it's fine with you all, I'll cover them during the office hours section. So our next speaker is Harshil, who's going to give a lightning talk about how he's been using the new Notion nodes. Harshil, take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am really excited to talk today about automate Notion for productivity, because internally we use Notion a lot, and I have been discussing this with Max, and we wanted, to automate a lot of our Notion workflows. So let's first, talk about what Notion is, because I feel, if I before jumping into that, it's better to understand, what the tool is and understand how it can be used. So Notion, they specify it's an one workspace. So with Notion, you can have your own database. You can use it as a database where you can store all the information. So you can replace, the Postgres nodes that Ben showed, and you can add the Notion node over there, and you now have all your Pokemons in your Notion database. You can even use Notion as as a CRM. So this can be a personal CRM or a company CRM that you want to use for. And the other thing is you can use it for your to-do list. So I kind of started with this. I kind of started using Notion as a to-do list, because it allows you to use it, gives you different views. It can be a Kanban view, it can be a gallery view, it can be a list view, it can be a table view. So it's pretty amazing to use it in different ways. And talking about how companies use it, so one of the common use case the companies have is use it as their wiki. So all the information about the company that they want to share internally with the team, they use Notion for that. So those were a couple of use cases that you can do with Notion. So enough of talking about Notion. Let's see a couple of workflows in action. So I have 3 workflows to show you. Let me just quickly pull this down. All right. So the first workflow is, it's a very small workflow. What it does is it gets all the newsletters that I receive on my email and adds it to Notion, because I have this, I don't know, this habit of, uh, I don't, the notifications, they kind of annoy me every time, you get a new email. So now what this workflow does, it just, automatically adds all those incoming newsletters to Notion. So I kind of executed it before, so that, just to make sure that everything is working fine. So let me go to Notion. So I am using a simple list view over here. We have a couple of properties going in there. Let me execute it once again, and then you can see how it looks in Notion. So for the IMAP node over here, I am filtering out based on the sender. So right now I'm just using, looking out for only two of the people I subscribe to. It's info@CFP land. So if you are into talking about giving talks at conferences, this is something that you should subscribe to. And then there is a newsletter by Sam Julien, which is really great if you are just starting your journey, or if you want to get more into content creation or developer in general. So now that I have some data coming in, you can see we have 4 items over here. Using the set node, I just specify all the information that I need. So I get on which date this particular email was sent to me, who was this sent from, and the subject. And then in the Notion node, I am just adding all these values over here. So I'm adding the name, basically the title, the author, and then the date. So if I come to Notion over here, you can see now we have all this information. I wanted to I wanted to bring all the content in Notion as well, but Notion does not allow you to, bring everything in there, does not render HTML correctly. So that was a bit annoying part over there. And I'm still, trying to figure out if I can, get it working in Notion somehow. So that would be something really interesting. So I don't have to go back to my email and just, read it over there. It can be simply done on Notion. The another thing that I want to do in this particular workflow is have a check mark. So when I'm done reading with that, I can just, do a check mark and I know like, okay, I'm done with reading this, and then it can be, automatically archived or, something like that. Now talking about the next workflow. Now this is something that I have built for our internal use case. So we often talk to our community members, our users, and try to understand how they use N8N, and we take notes for that, obviously. But then when we take notes, we and when we're done with the call, we have to manually go to the team and say, hey, I've talked to this person. You can check out the note over here, which was a bit annoying for me because like, hey, this is if it can be automated, why not do it, right? So now over here I use the Notion trigger node, which triggers the workflow every time a new entry is added. So for now it's configured to run every day at 9 a.m. So whenever like every day at 9 a.m. it checks for all the entries that are stored in this particular Notion page. Let's see. It's called user call. Yeah. So user call, and over here, or maybe it's user research. Yeah, sorry, it's user research. So over here now there are two different kind of research that I do. It can be someone who I interview with or someone who I am onboarding on N8N. So now this node fetches that information. It runs the switch node to check what kind of call it was. Was it an onboarding call? Was it an interview? And based on that, it routes to the particular the particular channel. So over here, I'm using Discord just for the demo purposes, but I would then replace it with the Mattermost node to send it to the specific Mattermost channel. So again, because now this is in testing, it is going to just give me one input over here from Notion. So it's just going to go to the first route because the incoming value is interview. And then it sends me a message on Discord. So if I open the Discord, the interview channel, you can see over here, it sends the information, and it also, just gives me the link. So I can just click on the link, open it, and view all the notes. The another cool thing that I kind of built with integrating Notion, Discord, and N8N was a slash command with which you can simply add new interesting articles that you come across. So you just do slash link. So this workflow will get executed, and it will extract the title from that, and it will add that link to the Notion workspace. Currently, I have disabled it because I'm improving it and working on it to make it more user-friendly, not user-friendly, but add more features to that. So I don't have a demo for that, but I have a YouTube video which you can follow and just play around with it and try it on for yourself. So that's it for this particular lightning talk. Coming back to my slides. So what's next? So I am now planning to build a habit tracker, which would when I tap on the NFC chip, it automatically adds to the Notion like, hey Harshil, you completed this particular task. And I also want to automate some journaling. So every time I work, I make notes. Now I want to have a centralized platform where all my notes go into the place. And when at night I'm journaling, I know, okay, these were the things that I did, so that I don't have to go back again to maybe Obsidian or another tool where I'm taking the notes. It's already there in my Notion, and then I can add more thoughts to it. And another interesting use case that I want to try out is schedule social media posts. So again, with Notion, a lot of people use it for managing their content. So this is another use case that I am very interested to try it out. And we recently published a blog post which talks about different use cases, and it also has the links to the workflow. So you can always, go to n8n.io/blog and read the blog post, or, just try out the workflows as it is.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Harshil. And next up, we have Ronald. So let me make you a co-host. Ronald, stage is all yours.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to share this in my video here, so maybe you will make sure you pin me or make it larger. And I would like to talk about my N8N journey. And let me start where I come from. I work for, I'm the co-founder of Tkacz, and we provide alerting solutions for companies, for corporations. We have an alerting software and a relatively new, 3 years old alerting service, which is called Signal 4. And the objective is to inform people about critical situations as quickly and as reliable as possible. And that goes beyond simple notifications, like simple SMS messages or emails or text messages. And it offers multiple communication channels like SMS, like email, like voice calls, like push messages, escalations, duty scheduling, collaboration, so everything you need for critical alerting. And of course, an alerting system can only alert if some other systems detect malfunctions or failures. And therefore, we try to list integrations with monitoring tools, with IT ticketing systems, with IoT platforms. And that's where my N8N journey actually started. Last year, I found N8N and I thought, wow, cool. I would like to have an integration here. And I did this. And first of all, I used the Webhook. And then a bit later, I also created a node, a Signal 4 node. And I have also shared some workflows here. And I would like to go into one of those workflows. Let me go into this one. And as you can see, it's using Notion. Why? Of course, because it seems to be one of the most trendy nodes you have right now, and it's easy to use. And the idea here is to simulate a production environment where you have certain machines or systems like trucks, valves, whatever, and you have a status like up or down, and some IoT monitoring tools are setting the status here, up or down. And I can simulate this, like for my machine 1, I make this go down. And that's obviously a critical situation, and some team members need to take care. And what I will get in this case is an alert in my Signal 4 app. This is what you see here. All right, you get a notification here, a push notification. You can get a voice call. Many things are possible. And here we see the alert details, right? Now, what I can do is I can acknowledge the alert, and this information goes back into the, or it is sent via a webhook post to N8N, and from there it updates the table here, right? So we see, not yet, but we should be able to see it soon. Acknowledged by Ron. Then I can do some annotations here, like, okay, I will take care. I know what the problem is. Yeah, send this one. And also this goes back via webhook and it updates my table here. And now, of course, it might happen that the engineer or some automatic recovery resolves the issue on the machine side, and the machine goes up again. And then this will hopefully close the alert in Signal 4 again, so that all the team members know, yeah, the problem is no longer there. Yeah, it takes some time. I use an interval here, but after a while it will close the alert. Let me go to the workflow here. This is my reading node for the new events. Then I send the alert and I update the table, so I remember, okay, this item is what I've already read. Then we have the same for open alerts. Yeah, so to make sure when to update the status to resolved and update the table again. And we have our webhook and then a function that is used for formatting the parameters, and then we update the Notion table again. All right, since I only have 5 minutes, I need to rush a bit. And that's quite nice, right? That's quite nice. And it's really amazing what you can do with Node-RED, with N8N. But this is a hypothetical example, right? And what we also did recently is a real life workflow together with our partner SmartWorks. They have a tool that is on top of Micro Focus SMAX for ticketing, and they use N8N in the background also to send alerts. I will probably not not play the video here, but I will share the link in the chat later. And that's, yeah, basically the end of my journey, or the current status of my journey, I would say. And right now I'm a real fan of N8N, and you have a great product and a great team. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ronald. Thank you so much. All right. So I see we still have some unanswered questions. But before we jump off into the office hours section of the meetup, where we'll answer questions, I would like to extend a big thanks to our speakers for their lovely sessions, and to all of you for taking out the time to attend this month's meetup. But it doesn't have to end here. Let's continue the discussion on our Discord server. And in case you aren't already a member, I'll share a link with you. So that's how you can join our Discord server. And in case you're heading out now, I wish you a great weekend. And if you have any questions for any of the speakers about their sessions, about N8N, use cases, workflows, please send them along in the chat, and we'd be very happy to help. And we have some open questions for Jason. I noticed that he has just left the meeting because he had to join another one. So he'll be answering his questions in the Discord server later on. So keep an eye out for that. So Harshil, I have a couple of questions for you here. So first one is, can you set the body of the document in Notion DB?
You can set the body of the document in Notion DB. There is a caveat though in Notion, so it only allows certain number of characters. And that was again one of the issues that I realized while I was building the newsletter workflow. So if it's within that number of within that limit, you can always send out the body.
Cool. And I saw there was a question for a link to the YouTube video, but Harshil already shared it. We'll also share it in the Discord server later on. Cool. Then I guess this question for you, Harshil, as well. I'm new to the community. I found it after I saw your interview from Campus DevRel Show. I want to get started with learning automation with N8N. Where should I start?
That's a good question. I would say, our YouTube channel, it has a lot of interesting videos where, you can always get started. It gives you an idea, it gives you the first step from where you can start. And then always, you can come check out the documentation. We have 2 example workflows, which will again help you, understand N8N and, get started with that. So I would say, just get started, try exploring N10, try different tools with that. And that's how I actually started. I tried out N10 for some use cases that I had in mind. I played around with it for a while, and then, yeah, that's how how I basically started.
Cool. I see there's a question around setting up N10 on cloud-based PHP server, and I see somebody answered that. But yeah, in case you have some specifics around that, I would say the best place to go would be the community forum, community.n10.io, and we'd reach out to you there. Cool. I guess there's another question around, will there be a node for Amazon payment API in N10? So I would say if there's a node that we don't already have, and if you don't wish to use it with the HTTP request node, please do open a feature request in the community forum, and that will help us see like what the interest in the community is and prioritize that accordingly as well. Cool. And Harshil, I think this is for you as well. Will you share those workflows? Thanks in advance.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely put it on the workflows page on n10.io, and then you can just simply use that from there.
All right. And any other question, folks, for anybody of our speakers or anybody from N10? We'll wait for 2 minutes in case there are questions. So while we are waiting for questions, Max, I have a question for you. What are you working on these days? You mentioned something about NFC chips and iPhone. What are you looking to do?
Sure. So I have a very, very old phone, and my wife actually messaged me during this that I've got an iPhone SE that arrived. I'm not one for flashy phones, but after iOS 10, I believe, or iPhone X, you have the ability for background NFC tags. So what that means is you can tap an NFC chip with your phone and trigger an Apple Shortcuts workflow, which I'm guessing is very similar on Google, probably even more open, but Apple Shortcuts allows you to trigger a webhook. So what I plan to do, I'm going to be moving to a new apartment, is to frame photos of our favorite musicians and artists and put an NFC chip basically behind their face. And so when I tap that artist, it'll automatically trigger an N8N workflow through Apple Shortcuts that will then kick off a playlist by that artist. If we get some smart lighting, could also set the mood as well for that. So there'll be, my wife is into some oldies, we'll have a few of that. I'm a big techno fan, we'll have a few of those artists. But so in this way, we'll create sort of this art wall with all these greats and favorites that we love and respect, and we'll be able to tap our phones to start that workflow. And from there, we'll consider perhaps the volume is set at a different level if it's after hours for the neighbors, or perhaps even we'll play different types of tracks from that artist based on time of day, etc. So that's something I'm really looking forward to getting into. I think it's like a fun use case for myself. It's very often there's a fun use case, a good way to check out the tool and whatnot, and then you can start seeing how to apply it, for example, at the office or something. Perhaps getting some NFC tags around my desk for certain various automations. The one that actually first comes to mind is when we do N8N Cloud onboarding sessions. There's a few steps. You have to open the instance. We have a few other tabs that we open for the demo examples. I have a timer app that I open as well. I would love to have the NFC tab where I just tap that, and then it does all that for me in one click. So once that's online, or also the home use case, I'll absolutely put together a little presentation to show here on these community meetups. And also write up a little something. So if you'd like to do that at home, you can do so.
Amazing. That's inspired, Max. Thank you so much for sharing. Cool. So I see there are no other questions. So as always, feel free to connect with us on Discord and share your stories. And if you have any further questions, please join the community forum, community.n8n.io, and we'd be really happy to help you out. And thank you so much for joining. Big thanks to our speakers, all the participants, and hope you have a nice weekend. See you in the next month's community meetup. Ciao.